Recently, I traveled to a beautiful place called Fripp Island, South Carolina. I did a lot of photography here. I did over 40 gigabytes of photos. So today I'm going to be going over the landscape side of that trip. So if you didn't know, I'm a nature photographer. I do landscape and wildlife. So today I'm going to be exclusively looking at the beautiful landscapes of South Carolina. So I hope you enjoy, and let's just get into the video. So here we go. This is our first landscape. So this was on the very first night. We missed sunset by a little bit, but luckily there was still some color on the sky. So I went out to this point on the beach, and normally this is on the side that faces the main ocean. The other side basically faces the marsh. So I came out to this side, and there were some lovely colors in the sky. Um, Great, just kind of reads normal exposure effect. I believe this is about a 2-second exposure to get that nice movement in the water, yet it still blurs it, being a long exposure. One of my favorite details is how you can see the house in the background. This house is a very mysterious house. It's on an island separate from the rest of the town, and it's just very interesting subject to have. Just adds an extra element of interest. So this shot is shot at 16 millimeters on my 16 to 35 f4 lens. It's a great lens. This is the first trip I really got to use it a lot because I got it in February, and its landscapes are kind of boring where I live in that time of year. But here I really got to put that lens into use and really try it out, and I really liked it. This is the same shot at 35 millimeters. I think I actually like this one better. It focuses on more of the reeds there at the bottom, as you can see. You've got the nice color in the sky. You got the house. It's more prominent. I really like this shot. I think it's overall a better exposure too. It's the same shutter speed, but it's kind of a darker frame. I believe the other shot was an f8. This was an f11, so you get that better focus throughout the scene, and darker details, darker blacks to offset the bright whites of the sky. So here's just a landscape shot of the scene. I really like this too. It kind of captures the detail along the beach there at the bottom. You've got the island. You can kind of see the scale of it. You can also see the boardwalk details over to the right, which is really cool. And you've got that nice sky. And again, this is way after sunset at blue hour, so there's still some lingering color. So if you ever miss sunset, don't be afraid to come back. Maybe or don't be afraid to go after sunset's over. There might still be some lingering color, and you can get shots like this. Okay, so the next morning, I got up early. I was going to go to the beach and shoot sunrise, but the entire island was covered in this fog. And apparently, fog is actually pretty common on this island. So I took advantage of that. I've always wanted to I love trees and fog, so I knew I had to find palm trees. So I went to a golf course, by all things, and found this nice group of palm trees. And, normally this golf course would have been an ugly background, but with fog, it softens up all the details and really just makes a nice scene, as you can see. Uh, I really worked with kind of formations of trees. So you got kind of the 2 trees here. You've got 4 additional trees and those nice grasses at the bottom. Here's just another frame of those palm trees. These are different ones, but they're kind of more shrouded in fog, and you can see kind of the grass detail there at the bottom. This is probably my favorite shot of the palm trees. I just like the formations, the different interesting textures in the trees. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of a house back here, but there's nothing I could really do about that. I did clone out some other houses, but there is that little detail in the background. I don't think it really ruins the image. It's just kind of an extra element that you don't necessarily need. All right, then that night, we tried to shoot sunset again, but unfortunately it was completely cloudy. But the clouds were really interesting. Not quite as good as the sunset I wanted to shoot, but still great clouds. And the storm was about to roll in. So we went out on this boardwalk to get the shots. You can actually see some people over there on the boardwalk. We went out onto this boardwalk, and there was the nice storm clouds above, and I pulled out my wide angle, 16 to 35, and got this nice shot out at 16 millimeters of just kind of the curve of the boardwalk. It's the classic curve, shows a lot of the city and shows the sky above. I did a long exposure. You can see the nice blur in the clouds up there. and yeah, I really like it. It's got a heavy blue cast. It was a very blue scene. The clouds made everything blue, so I wanted to keep that in the image and not remove too much of that blue. Here's kind of the view from the boardwalk, just of the nice salt marsh. So this is always like this. It doesn't really get too affected by the tides, a little bit, but not as much as some of the other areas of the island. So you can find tons of birds here, which I'll cover in another episode. Birds, crabs, all kinds of things, and you've got these nice sea grasses. So I just took a very simple composition of kind of the lines in the texture of these seagrasses in the water. Once again, a long exposure and no filters for this either because it was so dark. So I could just open up that shutter, let light in, and still get blur in the water. Once again, this is a wide angle shot on my 16 to 35. All right, the next morning, got up early again, and I went out to the beach for some pretty good photography. The sky was pretty nice. Not a lot of color because it was pretty cloudy, but still some came through. This is a shot where I put my tripod kind of down on the beach. I don't have a center column, so I was able to extend the legs all the way down. And I got this nice texture in the sand, this nice tide pool, and the nice houses on the edges. It's not my favorite image, but I think it's a nice representation of the scene. I like this one a lot better. I have an L bracket, so I just rotated my camera with the 16 to 35. I rotated it and was able to get this. Shows a little bit more of the texture of the sand, shows more of the sky, and only has a little bit of the houses in there. One thing that really stands out in this shot is really the clarity of the 16 to 35. I really like it. It's a great lens, produces sharp images, and I would highly recommend it. So this beach was very interesting. It had a tide pool that was massive. I mean, it was like a river in between the beach and the ocean that you would have to cross. And sometimes that tide pool would be up to your waist. So that was really interesting and actually provided some great foregrounds for the beach, like you can see here. Here's another shot. This is looking back towards the tide pool, and it's basically a river. Sometimes a day the current is so strong that you could take a tube down out to the ocean. And although this isn't this typical sunrise color, I really love the purple in the clouds. So once again, I used my 16 to 35. You see a common theme here to capture this. I just love this shot. This is actually my computer wallpaper right now. I like the soft pastel colors and just kind of how the light interacts with the landscape in this frame. So the next day I went to a place called Hunting Island State Park. This is actually the island you have to go across to get to Fripp Island. And I went to this and I really enjoyed it. So there was this grand tree just kind of sticking in the sand. It was so weird. I don't think it was actually growing. I think it had been washed up and or the dirt had eroded. So I got this shot. You know, I don't know what I did on the focus. Focus isn't perfect. I think it may be because I did a long exposure. I made a mistake for some of these tree shots in this scene of attaching my 6-stop ND filter to my 16 to 35. So that long exposure maybe introduced a little bit of blur into those trees, which is fine. I don't think it's that bad, but it makes it a little bit odd. But I still like the scene nonetheless. There's beautiful cloudy skies above with some nice light rays streaming through and just a lot of texture. If it's not sunrise or sunset, cloudy days are my favorite conditions for landscapes because you get a nice even light on the scene and you've got some nice interesting clouds above to get some nice texture out of. So I really like this scene. It was really just nice. I got inside of this kind of wooden formation and I focus stacked it. So I focused one on this branch and one back on that tree. The tree was kind of illuminated with kind of a nice yellow highlights around it, really creating just a nice shot. I probably could have done one more shot for the focus stack because as you can see, these branches are a little unsharp. Some due to wind movement and some just due to lack of focus. But overall, I really like this shot. I love the color in the sky, the clouds, and just how the sand looks. I will mention this is once again on my 16 to 35. I've got my 6-stop filter to get that nice blur in the water. All right, this next shot is one of my favorites. It's just your classic landscape. 16 to 35, once again, you've got the nice foreground, a nice long exposure leading up to these nice driftwood. Got the beautiful clouds. I wasn't too happy about the exposure. I overexposed it a bit, but I still think overall it kind of produced a nice soft image with soft light, and I like it. I think it's really cool. It's very simple, very minimalistic, but I think it works. And it's just another reason why I liked Hunting Island so much. This next shot is interesting. It's not technically perfect. I made some mistakes, but I really like the composition. It was the strangest scene. There were these trees completely exposed. The water had washed away the dirt beneath these palm trees, so I wanted to capture it. These are the roots. So I waded into the ocean with my tripod and lens, once again being a 16-35, and I captured this scene. Unfortunately, my camera was on f16, and my lens does not do well at f16, so this image is pretty unsharp. I think it's still Instagrammable, like Instagram postable, but I don't think I'm going to print it. Because of the diffraction that occurred at f16. But overall, I really like the scene, and it's just it's very tropical to me. Got the nice sky, the nice blurred out water, and just kind of the nice background and the nice palm trees as the subject. Alright, so as the trip kind of neared an end a bit, there's still some time left, but I started to shoot more sunsets. So I went to the spot, with a fellow photographer, and it was a complete bust. We got attacked by mosquitoes. I got a cactus stabbed into my foot, and on the way back, I came across this tree in the sunset, and there was an extreme dynamic range. The tree was in shadow, but my camera was good enough to pull it up, and I just love this exposure. I love the shape of the tree. I believed I used my 24-240 for this one, and I was out at about 50 mil. And I just was able to capture the tree and its relationship with the sky behind it over the marsh. And if you look close enough, you can actually see a little tour boat out on the marsh, which is a nice little detail for some of the more perceptive viewers of my photograph. I really like this image. I like the shapes, like the colors. And it's just a great representation of what you'll see on the island. This is probably one of my favorite landscapes. It's a simple silhouette shot. I found this group of trees with a nice piece of brush. To the left out over there, and this nice thin band. There was clouds, and there was a thin band where the sunset poked through. I knew how to capture it. I zoomed in, stopped down, so there was no shadow detail, and just kind of captured this image. I really like it. I love the two trees and the trees to the left. I also love the little details down at the bottom there, kind of showing another forest across this part of the marsh. I really like this image. It's shot telephoto, 240 millimeters by 24-240. A little bit soft on these branches, which annoys me all the time because I really just I'm really a perfectionist when it comes to my photography. But the trees, which are the main subject right here, are nice and sharp, so I'm pretty happy with this image. Alright, so this was one of the last nights, and we went out for sunset once again, and it was kind of a bust, but there was this nice blue sky with these nice clouds. So I put my 10-stop filter on my 16-35 f4, blurred out this water, and got this nice shot. It's very minimalistic. There's not a clear subject, which some people may disagree with. They may not think it's valid to shoot, but I like it. It's very simple, maybe a good phone wallpaper, and yeah, I like it. This is just the opposite view of the lookout that we were at for sunset. You can see there's a little bit of color in the sky, and I, shot a wide-angle shot of the boardwalk looking back at this little forest, and I think it works. I like the scene. Just a very simple composition. So overall, this trip was great for my landscape photography. I did a ton of shooting, more than I had done in the entire year, to be honest, and it was just great. South Carolina, you may not think it'd be great for landscape photography, but there's great trees, great ocean scenes, just a really great scene overall. I highly suggest you going if you haven't. For my next video, I'm going to be going into the wildlife of Fripp Island. I did a lot of wildlife photography, even more than I did landscape. I have some cool things to show you guys. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.